Good afternoon. This is Sarah Brown, and this is Module 9, my case study. First of all, to summarize the case study, the Lightville Community School District narrowly passed a bond issue that included building a new junior high school. The district hired a new principal, Susan Potter, for that building that would work one full year prior to the opening of the building. The principal's job was meant to include staffing, programming, and overseeing the construction process. An advisory committee was also established to work with the principal, which was comprised of teachers and parents. Mrs. Potter wanted to involve that advisory committee in writing the school's mission and vision statements. She felt like, as an outsider, she doesn't have the best gauge on the community and desires to have the committee work collaboratively to write the statements that reflect the community. She has been met with some resistance from the committee, who just wants the principal to write the statements. The principal understands the importance of writing quality and relevant mission and vision statements that will give an accurate picture of what the future of the school will look like and how the school will meet those goals. These statements will help guide the development of programs in the new school as well as reflect the values of the community. The biggest challenge that Ms. Potter is finding is that agreeing on the best way to develop quality mission and vision statements so they're not just housed on a shelf somewhere. The principal wants to use a collaborative process, while Helen and the committee wants the principal to develop it independently and then just present it to them. Ms. Potter feels like the committee will just agree with her statements, and this will not accurately reflect the community. But the committee feels that the principal understands the process and has the knowledge to write the best statements. In relation to the values and priorities of CLO 1.1, there is data in the case study about community growth and demographics as well as location. They were used especially in promoting of the bond issue. The case study also shows diversity when it was being considered on who to select for the advisory committee. And the community has been represented through the bond vote as well as the committee membership. There were a few questions posed in the rubric that were not addressed because the information relative to those questions was unavailable in the case study materials. Second, we'll look at legal and ethical issues found in the case study. Generally speaking, there are no legal issues in the case study. No one was harmed by any action or decision of others, and there are really no grounds for law enforcement to be involved, and no disciplinary action would need to take place at this point. But synthesizing the content from previous modules, we know that ethics are defined as a set of principles that guide behavior. In the case study, one issue that might arise is the appearance of the lack of respect for the authority of the principal. The advisory committee is trying to override the principal's suggestion on how to proceed with the development of the mission and vision statements, which could be frowned upon in some cases. Secondly, the side conversations between Helen and the principal might also be viewed as an ethical conflict because it could appear to some that this is a personal agenda. These two issues could develop into much larger issues if not resolved. To synthesize the case study, the principal's desire to use the democratic process for developing the new school's mission and vision statement is up against the advisory committee's desire to use a more autocratic approach where the principal does the writing. Looking at the case study for missing information, there are a few key factors. There are some people that seem to be missing from the conversation. One is the superintendent. We have no information given on how Ms. Potter has used the superintendent to gain information on past practice or even guidance on where to go with the advisory committee. There are a few stakeholders that are also missing. There are no students mentioned in the case study, and community members that are not teachers or parents are also missing. As far as teachers go, there is no mention of their tenure, and sometimes the amount of time a teacher has been in education will impact their thoughts on the future of education. The location of the meetings was missing, so we don't know if these meetings were held at a neutral location or even on the construction site. With programs, there was a brief mention of a coach with athletic programs, but no other mention of activities or clubs and how those participants could have different values or priorities. There's also no mention of a past practice. How was the decision made at the other schools in the past on writing vision and mission statements? Much of this information would be beneficial to the principal in proceeding with a plan. To review and prioritize. The school district does have a new building and has given the principal the task of staffing, organizing programs, and collaborating with the construction team. After completing the staffing assignments quite easily, the principal wanted to take a visionary approach to organizing programs by developing a mission and vision statement for the building, reflecting on the future. She wants to focus on what the community desires for the future of the building and then develop a plan for programs and instruction. So far, she has been unsuccessful in inspiring others to see her vision. Her initial plan has been met with resistance from her committee. As far as priorities go, the principal is looking at writing a vision and mission statement so that she can then begin to work on programs, curriculum, and instructional approaches. She also wants to establish effective and productive communication between the principal and the committee. It's important that they come to an agreement so they can move forward. And finally, there needs to be a priority of establishing trust between the principal and the committee so that this will hopefully lead to future buy-in. For my plan, like Mrs. Potter, I consider myself a democratic leader. I would most likely have approached the development with the same strategy that she did. But connecting to my recent experiences in writing new mission and vision statements for our school, I feel like I have the ability to lead a group through the process. But I also understand that resistance will be part of the process. There will always be someone who feels like it's someone else's job. Like Mrs. Potter, though, integrity is a core value of mine, and I feel like she tried to be honest about her reservations with the committee for her ideas of writing a mission and vision statement. She's trying her best to lead with that visionary approach of collaborating with those stakeholders. But before moving on, I would have to share with the advisory committee that my strong desire to include them in creating the school statements is to promote the academic success of students as well as the personal well-being of each student and adult. Without their help, that can't be done. I would also point out to them that while I may be trained in writing such statements, some collaboration will be necessary to ensure that the statements can accurately reflect the community. It's important, I believe, to write out my thoughts on this so that I can make sure that necessary points are made and emotions don't get the best of me. I would then offer any member the opportunity to excuse themselves from the committee if they don't feel like they can offer the amount of support required for the process. I would also like to invite 4 students to join the committee in order to elicit their views, as well as make sure that more stakeholders are included in the process. Moving forward, I would share with the committee that I'm willing to try to write some of the statements or finalize some of the statements, but will compromise if they are willing to work together to help me understand the community better using the following process. I want to find some examples of mission and vision statements from the area schools or even other schools in the district to present to the committee at the next meeting. I will ask the committee to help identify the parts or words in the statements that they feel best reflect the values and priorities of the community. I will ask the committee to then identify what they see as a successful future for our school and who would be in charge of evaluating that success. We would use the committee's suggestions on community values and priorities to then write a mission and vision statement draft. I would then send those statements out to the individual committee members to review and comment on before the next meeting. I would ask that those comments and review statements would be sent back to me before the meeting to ensure the work of everyone and that all voices would be heard. At the following meeting, the group would work towards consensus on the wording of the statements to best reflect the shared vision of the school. Another meeting may be used for a final review after everyone has had some time to think on them for a while. Lastly, we would submit the revised statements for board approval. In looking at the evaluation of the plan, I wanted to consider the pros and cons. Some of the pros that I found would be there would be no more wasted time arguing over who should write the statements. Second, the committee could give valuable input on the values and priorities of the community still. Another pro would be that the statements would actually get written and the principal would be able to move on to the planning of programs, curriculum, and instruction. More stakeholders would be involved, and Lastly, the plan recognizes the need to sometimes pivot in education. Not everything will go according to our plans. As far as cons, the principal will do the majority of the work. The committee may not offer any suggestions to the principal's statements when asked. There also would be a precedent set that the principal will back down if certain people disagree, and this could be hazardous in the future. The committee may still resist the involvement requested by the principal, and another con could be that everyone would choose to leave the committee and the principal would be forced to start over. In the plan development, steps were taken to keep the process moving forward. Unfortunately, the process won't be as collaborative as previously hoped, but it does still involve the stakeholders and their opinions. The goal of getting the statements written will be accomplished using this plan, and inviting students to join will help ensure that their well-being and ideas for success are incorporated into the statements. My plan also still shows a commitment to match the values and the priorities of the community in the school. For the program standard integration, the correlation is this. The completed case study has provided a great opportunity to demonstrate my capacity to understand and develop a process that would promote the future success of students and adults. It demonstrated my commitment to work collaboratively without ostracizing my future employees by coming to a compromise with the advisory committee. The case study also provided an opportunity to reflect on my core set of values and how they play a role in my democratic and affiliative leadership styles, which incorporates people and compassion with participation. As far as relevancy, the case study was an opportunity to incorporate things learned in the previous modules. I was able to go back and review the mission and vision statements, writing process, as well as my leadership style. The case study was also a real-life scenario that I could reflect on how legal and ethical issues could be a part of my role as a future leader. The content from previous modules on reflection and evaluation were a big part of this assignment, and I worked through the pros and cons of my action plan. Currently, as the school year winds down, I have definitely been more focused on reflection in my current role as a school counselor. While I don't have a formal mission and vision statements for my program, I want to proceed with intentionality about the future of the program and the steps I'm taking to reach my goals. Lastly, the future impact that this assignment has had. While I doubt that I will be writing new mission and vision statements for our building because they were just recently done, the assignment has definitely reminded me of the need for collaboration in education. I don't want to be a top-down leader, but rather one that seeks the knowledge and expertise of others to best promote the success of each student and adult in the building. I realize that I cannot ensure success, but I want to strive for it day in and day out. The assignments of this class have helped me realize that in the future I want to be transparent in sharing what I view as my leadership style with educators in my building so that we will have a better understanding of where I come from in our interactions. Secondly, the assignment has shown me the importance of establishing expectations of reflection and evaluation. I want the educators that I work with to understand that our goal is common, and we only get better by looking at what's working and what isn't. Each of us has room for improvement, and we can't get that without the appropriate reflection both from ourselves and others.